Hey there Wargamers, Doug here with another bit of news from the Warhammer community site. And today we're going to be talking about this article you see on the screen. Underworld Fighters are headed to the 8 points in Warcry's new Tome of Champions. So, if you don't know, I happen to like Warcry a lot. It's the perfect system for me because it is, as I've said before, the least amount of mental effort and I guess time commitment to have the most amount of fun. To see crazy cool things happen, like, you know, just murking a hero or just having a whole swarm of bird people attack some. I don't know, it's just that fun, ridiculous stuff that we all love Warhammer for, put into a very small, compact package. Now, I'll be honest with you, I have not actually read this article, so we're going to do this together. I'm going to read it and kind of give my thoughts, and we're going to chat about it. Now, one thing I want to add before I jump into this, if you like this video and you like to support this channel, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. My patrons are just the coolest people in the world. They mean the world to me. I'm going to start posting in the Patreon more regularly. It's not really meant to be like a paywall or anything like that. It's just a way to say thank you and support the channel, and it means the world to me. But headed over here to the Underworld Fighters, we've actually seen this before in, what was it called? I think it was called Bladeborn, was the game that came out. It's only in select stores like Barnes & Noble, bookstores, that kind of thing, where it had the 2 Slaves to Darkness warbands, but inside that box was a bunch of cards to allow you to play other Chaos warbands from Underworlds in Warcry, and I think that is super cool. I'll link to that video in my description down below if you're interested. But this seems like they realized that that's an obvious slam dunk, right? Can we all just agree this is the most obvious win in all of Warhammerdom? Bringing Underworld Fighters into the 8 points is rad, and so now we're getting that officially in the new tome that's coming out. So let's take a look at this article. Warcry's latest annual release update is landing soon, and yes, it is called Tome of Champions 2021. The flow of time is convoluted in the realm of chaos, but it's never stopped the bloodthirsty warbands who battle across the deadly peaks and shadowy depths of the 8 points. Straight up manufacturing and printing problems, as well as shipping. That's totally cool. I am here for it. These ragtag rivals are more numerous than ever following the tumultuous events of Broken Realms, and now they're being joined by some new pals. That's right, your favorite fighters from Warhammer Underworlds are now making their way from the desolate prisons of the Cataphrane Curse to the desolate arena of the Bloodwind Spoil. Hooray! And first of all, I just want to highlight this picture. It's freaking awesome. It's got a whole bunch of Warcry terrain with a herdstone straight in the center. This is exactly what I want. Dubbed Bladeborn Fighters, these new arrivals give you more choices than ever before when it comes to building your warband. An extra 32 warbands worth of choices, in fact. And while you can include a full Warhammer Underworlds warband if you want, you can also pick and choose which fighters you want to take into Warcry, provided they have the correct rune mark, which I'm sure makes perfect sense. Each Warhammer Underworlds fighter belongs to a faction and bears a faction-specific rune mark to show which Warcry warband they can join. For example, Kagha's Ravagers and the Godsworn Hunt both have the Slaves to Darkness faction rune mark. We've seen that in Bladeborn. In addition, these new Bladeborn fighters all receive the Bladeborn rune mark to make it clear just how special they are. Now, I like that because technically, every single character in an Underworlds warband is a named character, so just having some way to make them stand out, I think, is kind of an obvious thing. And then we have this cool chart, the Bladeborn rune marks, and it'll essentially, this is the Bladeborn rune mark for order stuff, and then you have all of the different factions that they can be a part of there, and so forth. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's how list building works as is. It's just giving the rune marks for the right warbands to make sure that they fit flavorfully in with the other options that they have. As every Bladeborn fighter is a specific character with their own tragic tale to tell, you can only include one of each in your warband. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Don't want to use all the Bladeborn fighters as full members of your warband. You can take let me start this again. You can take a Bladeborn leader as an ally instead, and they'll be able to bring along their buddies into the bargain. So this is a way that you can dip into those things, even if you wanted to maintain the coherency of your particular warband. So you can just bring him as an ally, and then that leader can invite his buddies. Which, you know, I mean, if you're going to bring him, that's awesome. I feel like that's a pretty fair way to not kind of suffocate the existing choices, but you can just tag along one or two of the guys. Bladeborn Fighters are also suffering from a rather nasty curse you may have heard of. So if you're using them in narrative play, you'll find some additional rules for the Aftermath sequence. This is a snippet from the actual part where it has like a narrative play rule. In narrative play, you can add Bladeborn Fighters to your warband roster if they belong to the same faction as your warband. You cannot add the same one twice, we just went over that. You can pick a Bladeborn Fighter with the leader rune mark to be your leader as normal. In addition, during the Aftermath sequence, the following rules apply. You don't make injury rolls, you don't gain destiny levels, and Bladeborn Fighters cannot bear artifacts. That makes perfect sense. Like I said, they're all named characters. These things make perfect sense. Bladeborn Fighters add an extra layer of strategy and plenty more muscle to your team, and some of their fighter cards look seriously buff. If you're an Ida Deepkin player, you should definitely give the adorable Duinclaw some consideration because he's an absolute unit in the 8 points. So it gives us a sneak peek. This is the killer crab that belongs to the Underworlds Warband for the Deepkin. If you haven't seen it, where have you been your whole life? They literally just have a dude who's a crab. He just tags along as part of their warband, and here we get to see his Warcry iteration. And so for that, he's 130 points, which is pretty pricey, if I must say so myself. Before that, you get 12 wounds at toughness 6. He moves 4 inches, so he's a tanky little anchor point, I guess you could say. His only weapon is it's 1-inch range, strength of 5. He's going to roll 2 attacks for that, and a normal hit is 2 damage, and a critical is 5 damage. So he is a little damage spike, and I kind of dig it. This magnificent creature placed second in the Miniatures of the Year 2021 poll and is guaranteed to make a splash in any discerning warband. His shell gives him a whopping toughness 6, so you can watch your opponent gnash their teeth as they try and fail to land any hits. And that's true, he can do that. He would be a good anchor point. Speaking of bloodthirsty and dangerous creatures, the Crimson Court also joined the lineup, led by the elegant Prince Duval. This charismatic vampire lord can empower friendly fighters up to 6 inches around him, allowing him to deal extra damage for each successful hit they land during their activations. That's neat. I like that quite a bit. So we're looking at the Vampire Lord Warband from Underworlds. Their leader, Prince Duval, or Duvale, I don't know how to pronounce that, clocks in at 205 points. He better be good for being a fifth of your army. Movement 5, he's got a toughness of 4, which is interesting, but he has 26 wounds. Beyond that, 1-inch range, he's going to roll 4 attack dice at strength 4, and hits are 2 damage, crits are 6. That's nasty. He also comes with 26 wounds for some serious longevity, and he can hold his own in combat with 4 attacks per activation. That really is not bad. He has a pretty average stat line when it comes to his defense, like in terms of toughness, raw toughness, but just in sheer amount of wounds, he's not going anywhere fast, and I like that quite a bit. The Toma Champions 2021 goes up for pre-order soon, and it's absolutely packed with even more cool new rules, quests, and juicy narrative content. So that's pretty much the end of the article, but this is just to give us a heads up that all of these warbands, I'm going to pull this picture out here just so we can take a look at it in one screen. All these warbands are coming. Now I'm going to kind of just wax poetically here and give my thoughts as to all of them. With the Bladeborn box, we were given rules for the Chaos Warbands. I see no reason why they wouldn't just be copy-paste. There could be some modifications if they just saw something on the first print and run. They were like, oh, we should change that, whatever. So I'm not thinking anything vastly different. One thing that I can say from a top level, because we have some things to compare to with those Chaos Warbands, all of them do exactly what you think they do. Right? The Khorne ones want to move forward and punch stuff. I love the fact that they all have their own list of abilities, like their own ability card and all that. Makes them very useful. The ones that I'm most curious about, like the ones that I want to understand, how did the game designers for Warcry look at the lore behind this faction and turn them into something interesting in Warcry? My top picks for the most interesting ones are going to be definitely the Grimwatch, which is the Flesh Eater Courts one, because I want to know those specific models. How did you get the feel of the Flesh Eater Courts? I know they already exist with abilities and that kind of stuff, but this warband in particular, I'd love to know. And the other one is definitely going to be Thundrix Profiteers, because as a warband, that probably has some of the biggest number of weapon options available to you, just because they're all like armed to the teeth with different things. That sounds super cool. Again, of course, if you play KO, you have access to those things, but I'm talking about for Warcry specifically, it seems like a good toolbox to pull from if they're all named characters with named character stats and relevant abilities. That's pretty cool. Other ones here, honestly, I can point out some others from other warbands. I'm happy to. Like, I did one for Death, Thundrix Profiteers for Order for Destruction. I'd really love to see Rippa's Snarlfangs. That sounds freaking awesome. If you're a Destruction player and you don't bring Rippa's Snarlfangs, you're doing it wrong, okay? Gonna throw that out there. This sounds like the perfect moment for those models to hit the table, in my opinion. Up on the Chaos side, the one that I'm most excited for, it's a little bit kind of unfun just because we already have some of the cards and stuff for the Chaos ones. I'll probably say the Eyes of the Nine to me is the most interesting, just because of the way the horrors and that kind of stuff interact with the game, and it's kind of a mix of mortals and demons. I think that's definitely my call there. Again, I believe we already have the card for that one. I haven't checked, and my Bladeborn set's like locked away in the closet. I gotta go dig it out now. But here to me is the real win of this entire thing. These are some killer models. Like, it's been said on multiple podcasts, and I absolutely agree with it. The Warhammer Underworlds sculpts are the best individual model kits that Games Workshop puts out, in my opinion. And by that, what I mean is, you take some of these factions that have existed since, it feels like the Reagan era, right? Some of those, what are some really, really old ones? Certainly the Seraphon models, there's some really old sculpts there. Slaves to Darkness stuff, some of that's kind of up there. Like all those kinds of factions, definitely some of the Skaven things for sure, haven't had new models in a long time, and so they are independent reimaginings of some of those models without informing entire units or entire kits. They have a lot of creative freedom in terms of base sizes and what they put them on and how they're sculpted and their poses with their weapons all, in weird positions. I guess what I'm saying is, I'm really excited for the fact that the coolest models that Games Workshop makes are now coming into Warcry, which is a format that has always seemed incredibly conducive to having a low model count, but extraordinarily dynamic and visually interesting models. Now, I don't know the full extent, obviously, of what playing with Bladeborn units is going to be like. I do know that in the Bladeborn box, like the actual boxed game itself, they do have some rules mentioned for playing like Warband versus Warband. So literally Kagha's Ravagers versus Godsworn Hunt kind of a thing. There are also rules, of course, for just kind of splashing in a couple models here or there. For me personally, I feel like if you're going to take a Bladeborn thing, I, Doug, would probably have the named character as the leader, take their entire warband, and if there's points, which there probably won't be, but let's be honest, if there's points, splash in a few extra nobodies just to kind of die first. Have a few red shirts, if you will, if you're familiar with the Star Trek reference. Just people to die you don't have to care about. You can give them artifacts that keep them alive when you're doing a campaign, but for the most part, I like having an established team that's just like, we are here to kick some teeth in. So for example, if I was going to do my Slaves to Darkness, I'd probably do, you got Kagha's Ravagers, of course, so I'd have Kagha in charge. I would maybe bring her sister, the Wizard. I imagine both of their points costs are very, very high. But then beyond that, you could do all kinds of stuff with just the Marauders and Chaos Warriors and that kind of thing, like just to sprinkle in some extra nobodies to kind of soak up some of the points, add a little bit of diversity. Now, do I expect these to all be balanced? Of course not. Like, let me just broadcast that out to the ether as loud as possible, because you are dealing with so many different variables that taking all of one warband will never be the same as taking all of another. By that I mean Stormcast. There's 3 dudes in some of these warbands, okay? 3 dudes and a dog. Compared to Skaven, which has, is it 7 Skaven models, something like that? Or if not them, Gits. One of them has just an enormous amount of units. I don't expect them to be perfectly balanced in every way. I do expect them to introduce fun and interesting options to the existing Warcry rosters. That's all it needs to do. And this is, I'm sure, going to be narrative play. I already had the little box kind of etched out for it. but it's a narrative I'm here for, right? If nothing else, you know, I know that these warbands are currently locked in the Cataphrane curse of what's going on with Shadespire and how it poured into Gur and Harrow Deep and all these kinds of crazy things. I understand that's happening, but wouldn't this be a phenomenal way to tell a story of how those warlords became important figures that then ended up? So basically, playing Warcry as a prequel to how they got where they are. I'll take Kagra's Ravagers. Well, the story behind them is that the wizard of the sisters used to be in charge, okay? But then she screwed up and her sister, the Chaos Warrior Kagra, took control of the warband, but didn't kill her. So we have this usurping power, this kind of internal tension between the two of them. But what if we, you know, pull a share and turn back time, find a way, and now we have the sister who's the wizard. Let's say she's in charge of the warband, narratively speaking, of course. Mechanically, we still play it as Kagra's Ravagers, but narratively, we treat the wizard as if she's in charge, fill out the rest of the warband with all these other nobodies, and we tell the story of her downfall. So that, then when we play Underworlds next, Kagra's in charge and we know how she got there. I like those kinds of ideas. And because they are all named characters, they all have those same stories to tell. Each faction on this roster has come from a place and is stuck where they are now, locked in amber, so to speak, with all the Underworld stuff going on. But wouldn't it be really cool to tell the story of how they got there? And between all the various missions and the quests and all these kinds of things that are available to us when we're playing Warcry, there's no limit to the kind of stories we can tell. So I, for one, am super excited about this. I hope that you are too. Tell me which of these, you know, Underworld's warbands are you most excited about when it comes to Warcry, if any at all? And quite frankly, is it going to get you into Warcry? You know, depending on how it works point-wise and that kind of stuff. I will be doing a full breakdown when the tome comes out about like which of these can reasonably build a realistic warband that is actually fun and engaging. And that'll be an opinion piece, of course. But let's say yours is, and you play Underworlds. Are you going to try Warcry? And vice versa. You know, would you pick up an Underworld box for like $35 just to have some cool choices? Heck yeah, dude, why not? Let me know what you're excited for in the comments down below, and I will catch you next time. Happy wargaming, friends.